Welcome, myself Professor S.R. Chakni. Today we will discuss about the lecture number 4, that is climatic study of the rainfed area. In this lecture we have to study the different climatic parameters. In that first important parameter in the rainfed area, that is the precipitation. Then there are certain characteristics regarding the precipitation of the rainfall in the rainfed area. In that first character, that is the uncertain and erratic rainfall. Whatever the amount of the rainfall that is received in the rainfed area, that is uncertain, that means there is no certainty of receiving the rainfall, and their distribution is also erratic, that means there is no equal distribution of the rainfall in the rainfed area. This is the first and the most important characteristic of the precipitation. Then second characteristic of the precipitation, that is the insufficient or the inadequate rainfall in arid and semi-arid regions of the country. Then whatever the precipitation that is received in the rainfed area, that is insufficient, that means not a sufficient amount of the rainfall that is received in the rainfed area, and it is also inadequate in the arid and the semi-arid region. Then next character is the uneven intensity as well as the distribution. In different parts of the country, the intensity of rainfall is uneven, that means there is no equal intensity among all the regions of country, and there is also no even distribution of the rainfall is there. Then there is the frequent occurrence of the dry spell and the monsoon break that will be frequently occur in the rainfed area, and this is one of the reason behind the failure of the crop production in the rainfed area. There is the frequent dry spell. So the frequent dry spell is the period during which the rainfall is not received, that is known as the dry spell. And the monsoon break, it is the period for the certain time during which also the rainfall is not received. So these are the important characteristics of the precipitation in the rainfed area, and this is the first and most important climatic parameter on which mostly the success or the failure of the crop is depends. Then the second most important climatic parameter, that is the temperature. Mostly the temperature affect the physiological as well as the biological processes of the plant. That means all the physiological as well as the biological processes of the plant, that is regulated by the temperature. Then the low temperature increases the nutrient deficiency. When there is the very low temperature is present, in that case they occur the nutrient deficiency in case of the crop cultivation. Then at low temperature the water is tightly bound to the soil and it is difficult to absorb by the plant. When there is the low temperature is there, in that condition whatever the water which is available into the soil, that can be tightly bounded and that is difficult to absorb the plant. That means if there is the proper absorption of moisture that is takes place when there is the sufficient amount of the capillary water that is present into the soil, and if the water is tightly bound in the soil particle, that is very difficult to absorb. Then the high temperature also causes the loss of chlorophyll that result into the chlorosis. If the second condition is also there, as like the low temperature, it also affect plant growth and their absorption. Then the high temperature also causes the loss of chlorophyll, and that loss of chlorophyll that resulted into the chlorosis diseases into the plant. Then it also causes the excessive transpiration. If the temperature is more, in that condition the transpiration rate is also increases, and in that condition most of the water in the plant body that can be lost through the processes of the transpiration. Then next most important climatic parameter, that is the humidity. So the humidity also affect on the plant growth, development as well as the yield. In humidity, in the dry region the relative humidity is less than 20 to 30%, while in humid region it is 60 to 70%. On an average the average relative humidity in the dry region is only 20 to 30%, and in case of the humid region that is 60 to 70%, that is mostly useful for the plant growth and development. Then low relative humidity increases the transpiration rate and water requirement of the crops also. If the relative humidity is increases, then transpiration rate as well as the water requirement of the crop is also increases. Then when relative humidity is high, then pollen may not be dispersed from the anthers. Then the another disadvantage of the high humidity, that is if the relative humidity is high, then the pollen grains which are not dispersed from the anthers, and that affect directly on the yield of the crop. Then the incidence of the pest and diseases is high under the high humid condition. So the high relative humidity that increases the incidence of the pest and diseases under the high humid condition. That means if the relative humidity is high, in that condition the incidence of the pest and diseases is more. Then very high or very low humidity is not suitable for the high grain yield. That means very low amount of the relative humidity as well as the very high relative humidity, both the conditions are not suitable for the high grain yield. In that condition, when we have to obtain the maximum production, then we required the relative humidity in the range of the 60 to 80%. So the humidity also plays the very important role in the. Then next important climatic parameter in the rainfed area, that is the wind. So wind increases the transpiration as well as the evaporation. If the wind intensity is more or wind velocity is more, in that condition it increases the transpiration rate as well as the evaporation rate also. So the transpiration is the loss of water from the aerial parts of the plant, and the evaporation is the loss of water from the soil. So both the transpiration as well as the evaporation rate that increases when the wind velocity is more. Then wind also causes the lodging of the herbaceous plant, that causes the, it also causes the soil erosion also. That means the loss of soil erosion is more in case of the more wind velocity. Then the heavy wind followed by the rainfall that causes the uprooting of the crops also. So that is also harmful in the crop production, as if the heavy wind as well as the rainfall, both the condition are occur at the same time, in that condition it causes the uprooting of the crops. Then it also affect on the process of the photosynthesis. Then the wind with the low temperature that also produces the chilling injury mostly to the horticultural crops. So wind is also the important parameter in the rainfed condition. Then most important climatic parameters in the rainfed area, that is the solar radiation. So this solar radiation also plays the important role in the crop growth, development as well as the yield. Then arid regions are characterized by the clear sky during the day and night, that permitting the large amount of the solar energy to the earth surface. That means in the arid region, the characteristic of the arid region, that is the clear sky that is present during the day and the night also, that permits the large amount of the solar energy to enter into the earth surface. Then it also provides light to the photosynthesis and for the many other functions of the plant. So with the help of the solar radiation, all the physiological, biological processes which are taking place in presence of the solar radiation only. Then it also provides the light which is required in the process of photosynthesis for production of the dry matter, and if the dry matter production is more, in that condition also the yield of crop is increases. Then the solar radiation also increases the evapotranspiration also. So the evapotranspiration, that is the combined loss of water from the soil as well as the plant surfaces, that is known as the evapotranspiration, and this evapotranspiration that is increases in presence of the high solar radiation. Then the next important climatic parameter in the rainfed area, that is the dew. So this dew provides the very small proportion of the water requirement to normally transpiring the plant. So that dew, the presence of dew on the plant surfaces, that provides the some amount of the water which is required for the transpiration, in the process of the transpiration to the transpiring plants. Then next one, that is the fog. So the fog affect the plant growth through the high air humidity, then through the aerial parts of the plant also. And the last climatic parameters in the rain-fed area, that is the frost. So the frost damages the crop occasionally due to the low temperature. That means the occurrence of the frost is not regularly, it is occasionally occur, and it occurs due to the low temperature. So these are the 8 climatic important parameters which are present in the rain-fed area of the country, and that most climatic parameter that decides the success or the failure of the crop in the rain-fed area, and on that different factors the yield of the crop is depend. So this is about the climatic study in the rain-fed area. Thank you.